And you know what? I'm just gonna get this bad stuff out of the way. I want to get it done because I want to have fun the rest of the show.
Yeah.
That's what I did when I coached. I was like, let's get the negatives out of the way and let's talk about the positives first. So, Matt, let me start with you on this stuff with Vince McMahon. It was funny
right away. He's like, oh,
and it's funny, Phil. When Phil and I were talking last night, we texted and we said we're probably going to be using the word allegedly a lot. But this lawsuit that came through about Vince McMahon that has forced him to resign from the board of TKO just nearly rocked the Royal Rumble. Devastating charges against Vince McMahon and enough to get him to leave TKO. Matt, what's the latest that you've heard? Any new news about this and your thoughts on this? Because, man, I read that complaint and I can't even talk about it on the radio. It's that bad.
Well, I'm glad you did because apparently Triple H didn't.
Yeah.
No.
That's not great. And I think it's really bad that Cody gave a better answer during the media scrum last night than Triple H did. It's a messy situation. The big thing coming out of it is what sources are saying is that Endeavor and TKO want to basically rid the company of anybody that was closely associated with Vince McMahon during his regime and basically start fresh. And I don't know what that means, but I would imagine people like Bruce Pritchard and Michael Hayes probably on their way out the door because they've been Vince's right-hand man for the last several decades. And I can't imagine that they didn't know that this kind of stuff was going on. So they're going to be collateral damage. I don't know what's going to happen to Triple H either. I don't like his answers last night. And by his answers last night, I'm kind of worried that he knew more than people assumed, and that's why he chose to respond the way he responded last night. WWE's prospering under Triple H right now, and I don't know what that company looks like with a new creative regime without Triple H in charge. So it's a shaky situation right now, man. I don't like any of it. I love Slim Jim though, because Slim Jim got Vince McMahon out of that company. So thank you, Slim Jim. We all owe you a debt of gratitude.
Yeah, and just to give a little more clarification, one of the women that Vince had sexually harassed and allegedly it accused her also of trafficking her, and it's bad stuff. The filed suit, there was an NDA, but this has gone way past it now. And last night in the press conference after the Royal Rumble, Triple H said he hadn't even read the lawsuit.
BS.
And you have to wonder how many people knew about this, because in the suit, it even said that images were shown to crew members and so on. And now you kind of wonder if this was the reason that Kevin Dunn left. And I mean, this is absolutely devastating. And, one thing that I had even tweeted out was, how much did, Stephanie know about this? How much would Triple H know? And Phil, I mean, this is going to run pretty deep in WWE.
Yeah. And, as I was reading through too, because the lawsuit definitely does state there were 4 members of the corporate side of WWE who knew from the lawsuit perspective, and that there was one superstar who was also unnamed but mentioned. And so the context of what you just said, he showed these pictures to the tech. Well, that's what he was saying to her. But did he give the context of, this is somebody who works for the company in the office side in Stanford? She's not on the road. So I don't know, the context of hey, here's this image and who this person is, how well did they know? Because from some people who I've known who've worked not even on the wrestling side, but on the crew side, they didn't have connections to the office because they were on the road and they weren't supposed to be connected to talent. So there were some things that are very segmented in certain respects. So on that side, I don't know if they knew. And I'm wondering if that's why they weren't specifically mentioned even anonymously in the lawsuit, because the suit definitely does call out people, but not by name. And so I'm curious of sort of then what happens next. And even with the lawsuit naming, I think what is the terminology? WWE corporate employee number one,
Yeah.
and things like that. Is it an effort to try to get them to turn to become witnesses and providing information, copies of text messages, that kind of thing, and that's why they're anonymous at this point? Or is it that well, we'll hold this, and then you could also be included later down the road? I don't know enough on that side of things of how could it go. And it's Marie, you are not wrong. It is vile.
It is
vile.
It's nasty. It's disgusting.
Mhm.
It's bad. I asked Mark this. I want to ask you guys real quick, Matt and Phil, real quick, does this hurt the brand? And if so, how much does it? Or does the brand continue to strive?
Well, I think it would have hurt the brand a lot more had they not reacted as quickly as they did. But I also believe they only reacted as quickly as they did because they lost the Slim Jim sponsor before the Royal Rumble. And that's one of their biggest sponsors that they have. And it sponsored an entire match last night. Slim Jim was plastered everywhere. They would have lost all of that had they not taken action and forced Vince out. And I know Vince saying he's resigned or whatever, but there had to have been definite pressure on him from TKO and Ari Emanuel and all them to you got to go, dude. You got to get out of here. So I think the longer he would have stayed on, the more damage it would have done to the brand. I think they had an opportunity last night with Triple H to calm the storm a bit. If he would have had a statement prepared or just honestly, that's how he should have handled the conference. He came out and he was rambling about numbers and all that stuff. Instead of doing all that, the first thing he should have said is he should have had a prepared statement about the Vince McMahon situation and ended it with, we're under legality right now. This is not just a suit against Vince. This is a suit against WWE. I'm not at liberty to discuss this lawsuit right now. So if we can please keep our questions towards the Royal Rumble and other WWE, related products, that would be great. But he didn't do any of that, and he opened himself up to get 3 different questions in a row that he handled horribly. There's no other word to use. He handled it horribly. And I know a lot of people love to dunk on Tony Khan and some of the answers that he gives in his press conferences, but Triple H made Tony Khan look like a savant last night with how he answered those questions. It was really, really embarrassing for Triple H and WWE.
Phil, what do you think?
So what I was trying to catch up on, because I missed the media scrum. So I missed sort of the initial. I did see some of the reaction of he should have said more, he should have done more, he should have addressed it, didn't address. I saw that kind of statement. I saw that. I even just read a full transcript on what Cody Rhodes said, and that it felt like that was more articulate of a response. I'm without knowing, right? There's part of me that is, what is known by other people, what will come out next. Does this it was thought even before when the previous allegations came out that more information, more things were going to come. And then, so here you have Vince who leaves and then comes back 6 months later and nothing else had come. And now we have this. So is this another opportunity for, I shouldn't say opportunity, but is this going to be what starts the ball rolling on other things now coming to light? And like you said, who knew what and when?
Well, here lies the stupidity and the hubris of Vince McMahon, because the reason why this lawsuit came out like it did was because he stopped paying her the money that he agreed to pay her for the NDA. He was supposed to pay her $3 million, and he stopped paying after $1 million. So none of this would have happened if the old man would have just paid the money that he agreed to pay when he signed her to an NDA to begin with.
Wow, so that's unreal.
This is on him.
Yeah.
Yeah, and what I'm going to be very curious to see in the future, and I want to kind of wrap this up so we can have some fun and talk about the actual wrestling, is I'm going to be very interested to see what Stephanie might have to say about this, what Shane's going to have to say about this, and what previous employees and wrestlers are going to have to say about this that have worked for Vince, because I can imagine there's a lot of people that, because of the control that Vince had over the industry, especially after the fall of WCW that just were like, if I say one thing, I'm going to get blackballed. I'm going to be out of this industry and I'm done. Now that he's out, are the floodgates going to open? This could be absolutely fascinating to see what's going to take place here over the next year or two.
And fascinating, not in a great way. Just
And I think it started yesterday with Ronda Rousey's tweet. I think that was the first tweet of many that we're going to see coming out over the next several weeks. That people aren't afraid to speak anymore. Mm-hmm. People are going to speak up, and they're going to be loud, and it's not going to look good on Vince McMahon or the company. As far as Stephanie goes, you have to feel like she knew something, because if you look at the timeline of events of the last couple of years, she stayed completely out of Vince's way in everything that she did. Vince resigned. She came back to the company. Vince forced his way back in. She left the company again. She wanted nothing to do with WWE while Vince was in charge in steering that ship. So to me, Stephanie knew and wanted out. She didn't want anything to do with that. She didn't want to be tangled up in it. And honestly, I don't freaking blame her. She looks like a genius right now. If you look back on everything that's occurred and you look back on the decisions that she made, she was an absolute genius to do what she did.
Yeah, and the same with Shane too. He got out of there way before that. And I've heard stories coming out that he was in boardroom meetings and, screaming up and down, this has to stop. This has to stop years ago. So this is going to be, oh boy,
it's messy. It's so messy.
Right. And wrestling is that world that lives in disbelief, right? Like, or the want to believe even. Like, so what happened? Did this happen? Every rumor, every storyline, creative decision, every corporate move is now going to be looked back retrospectively and gone, how is this impacted by this? And so the thought of, it's going to be a clean slate. Well, if you talk clean slate, does that mean an entire McMahon-less timeline? Like that everything is now just flipped over to a different kind of thing? I'm kind of wondering what Marcho just said. How many other NDAs are floating out there? Yeah. Similar situations have happened. What similar situations may be existing out there as well? It's going to get crazy. It's going to get crazy. It's going to get crazy. This is bad. I think because I think there's going to be both this rollout of, total speculation. I mean, we're going to do it a little bit right now. There's going to be this rollout of people saying, "Hey, this happened to me." Mm-hmm. And then you're probably going to get some added stories that, did this happen? So I think you're going to get this big mix of all three things, and it's just going to make it so much more convoluted. And if you read through this lawsuit, it's already messy. Like it's a hot mess. The things that people are like talking about that have come through and on other posts or on news outlets, that's the tip of the iceberg, because there's things like Mark said that you can't say on the radio that were stated in this lawsuit. So.
And it's a lot of triggering stuff. Like, you don't want to go to social media and talk about this stuff. The lawsuit literally gets, as you continue to read it, you're like, it can't get any worse than this. And then it gets worse.
Yeah.
It's awful. And I didn't, I talked to you, Mark, before we got on the show over the weekend. I'm like, I really don't want to talk about the Vince stuff, because the words I have for Vince McMahon really can't be used on radio. And I'm trying really hard.
You're awesome, Matt.
To maintain my language right now. It's a bad situation, man.
And I appreciate it, Matt. You're usually the happiest guy on Twitter. So
I try to be. I try to be positive, but sometimes you just can't be. And this is one of those times.
Yeah, I think I have to do a live video podcast with Matt and just go uncensored, man, because there's a lot to be said the right way. We can't use these words right now. That's all I'm saying.
We'll do it on your show, Matt.
Yeah, exactly.
Because then I get to go off too. Because I got to be really good. I'm an employee here, so if I do it, it's really bad. Yeah, and just real quick, just some comments in the chat box before we go to break. Gamer Bear says the great guy is here. I'm not sure which great guy that is, but it could be Phil and Matt. Let's see, Marie Burney saying, I haven't read it but heard about it and it's disgusting. You got it. Let's see, it's
I'm curious about how many NDAs he had women sign over the years, who he's actually paid. Mark Cho I forgot. Some people can see the comments on the videos, but we also have to mention them over the radio. Jeez.
And,
Yeah,
and
so-
that could be like what Mark says, it could be a gigantic problem. If there's multiple NDAs out there and he decided to stop paying everybody,
Oof.
Oh,
and they all decide to start coming forward, dude's toast.
It's over.
There's-
It's done.
Oh,
And
boy.
I know he says he wants to vigorously defend himself, but there's no way he's letting this go to Discovery.
There's a very
There's
interesting
no way.
He's paying off a lot of people.
It's interesting because this lawsuit could have just been, hey, I had an NDA. Part of the agreement was a financial arrangement. He didn't follow through on the financial arrangement. Done. That's not, and that could have been enough to lift then the NDA, which could have then opened up more things for disclosure. That's not where they're going. They're like,
Yeah.
okay, we're gonna lead with all of it and go, because of all of this, the NDA should be valid. It's like, oh, okay, interesting.
well, at least WWE got that $5 billion from Netflix, so they'll have a little extra cash to sit around to take care of this.